Congratulations! If you own a Hyundai Ioniq 6, a Kia EV6, or an Ioniq 5, you own one of the top 5 fastest charging EVs available in the United States today. Edmunds released their EV charging report this week, which ranks every EV available in the United States by how fast it charges in miles per hour. And the Ioniq 6 tops the chart, and right below it is the Kia EV6. So if you want to find out more about the testing and what other cars ranked up there in the top 10, stay tuned. Hey everybody, it's the Ioniq Guy. If this is your first time to the channel, welcome. My name's Corbin. I cover all things Hyundai, Kia, Genesis, EV related. So I know a lot of you are big on EV news, but if you aren't, then you might not have seen this. Edmunds this week released a big EV charging test. And guess what? Tesla had one vehicle in the top 10. Hyundai dominated this test thanks to their 800-volt architecture. So Edmunds teamed up with a company called P3, which does automotive EV testing, and I'll just read what they say exactly. P3 utilizes a device that monitors and records electricity use while an EV is connected to a fast charging station, as well as power request communication between the EV and the station. We then combine P3's data with Edmunds' data on how much electricity a car uses per mile of driving to tell you actual miles per charging hour. So if you weren't aware, Edmunds also does their own investigative range testing on all EVs available in the US. So you can check out that data too at the link in the description. So let's talk about the results. Numero uno, the 2024 Hyundai Ioniq 6 Limited rear-wheel drive, which is kind of surprising because the Limited has the big 20-inch wheels. The SE has those 18-inch wheels, which give it more range on paper. But if they did, that number of 868 miles per hour would likely be higher because the Ioniq 6 SE is much more efficient than the Limited trim. So congratulations, Ioniq 6 owners. You can now brag that you have the fastest charging EV in the United States. Second place is the 2022 Kia EV6 Wind rear-wheel drive at 769 miles per hour, which is nothing to scoff at. But it's a full 100 miles per hour slower in terms of charging. So that just goes to show just how efficient the Ioniq 6 really is. And then right behind the EV6 rear-wheel drive is the Ioniq 6 Limited all-wheel drive. So even if you go for the all-wheel drive Ioniq 6, you're still getting that crazy fast charging speed of 764 miles per hour on average. And finally, a new platform shows up in the 4th position. That's going to be the 2020 Porsche Taycan 4S at 690 miles per hour. The Porsche Taycan is also a 800-volt architecture vehicle, so it is expected to see it up here with the ranks of the Ioniq 6 and Ioniq 5 and EV6. After the Taycan comes the Kia EV6 GT line at 678 miles per hour. And then finally, at number 6, the Ioniq 5 makes the list with the dual-motor all-wheel drive, clocking in at 673 miles per hour, which is just about 200 miles per hour slower at charging versus the Ioniq 6 Limited rear-wheel drive. And that's going to come down to a couple things. That's going to be the addition of the second motor giving all-wheel drive, as well as that higher drag coefficient and more frontal area. In 7th place, we finally have another brand, the Mercedes-Benz EQS 450 Plus at 593 miles per hour. And then back again in the 8th position is the 2023 Genesis Electrified G80, which also shares the same charging technology as all the other Hyundai and Kia Genesis products, and that comes in at 588 miles per hour. In 9th place, the Porsche Taycan GTS, which I'm assuming is a higher spec version of the Taycan, and that comes in at 584 miles per hour. And then after being beat 9 times, here comes the 2023 Tesla Model 3 Long Range at 569 miles per hour. So when comparing to the Ioniq 6 all-wheel drive, you're talking 200 miles per hour slower at charging. So Tesla might dominate in sales here in the United States, but it is by no means the quickest charging EV here. Then we get another Porsche in the 11th slot. 12 is the 2023 Kia EV6 GT. That's the high-performance Kia EV6. In 13th position is the Kia EV9 at 543 miles per hour. And then all the way down in 14th place is the 2021 Tesla Model Y Long Range at 538 miles per hour. And after this point, there are no more Hyundai Kia Genesis cars listed. So Hyundai Kia Genesis make up the majority of the fast charging vehicles here. That just says a lot about the technology that these cars have and the ability that they really have at DC fast chargers. And I've always said the DC fast charging capabilities of these cars are their biggest selling point. If you want to do long distance and road trips, the Hyundai Kia Genesis EVs cannot be beat. And that just goes to show with the data here. Tesla may have a better charging network, but that's going to be a completely moot point in the next couple years as Hyundai Kia Genesis products get access to the supercharger network. On top of all this, Hyundai is now in second place in terms of EV sales in the United States. So that is also a big deal. Ford's not there, General Motors isn't there, Volkswagen isn't there. Hyundai has put all their eggs into the EV basket, and it's starting to pay off because they are taking some serious market share away from Tesla. Now, the reason for testing at miles per hour is it is the most empirical way of comparing these cars. They all have different sized battery packs, so recording their charging speed based on 10 to 80% is not a fair comparison, although many EGMP platform cars do charge from 10 to 80% in just 18 minutes. So Edmunds did provide a more thorough data set down below. And you can see there's all sorts of information here. Now, when you sort this information by average time to add 100 miles of range, say you want to just hop in 100-mile increments from charger to charger, the Ioniq 6, the Kia EV6, the Ioniq 5, they all beat everybody else here. Tesla doesn't even show up until the 6th spot here. So in just 7 minutes with the Ioniq 6 limited rear-wheel drive, you can then travel another 100 miles. So to do an apples-to-apples comparison, the all-wheel drive Ioniq 6 limited will do it in 7 minutes and 51 seconds, and the Tesla Model 3 long range, which is all-wheel drive, can do it in 10 minutes and 33 seconds. So there's a pretty big difference there. Now here's where things get interesting. When you sort this data by Edmunds tested consumption, you will see that the Tesla Model 3 long range is actually the most efficient EV on the list, but not far behind it is the Ioniq 6 limited rear-wheel drive. Now, if that had been the SE trim with the smaller wheels, it would definitely beat the Tesla Model 3 long range. And that's one thing that Tesla's had going for it for many years now, and that's the efficiency of its motors and all of its electronics. But then you have the Ioniq 6 limited rear-wheel drive with 24.2 kilowatt hours per 100 miles. That's within the margin of error here. You're talking a very small difference. Now, when sorting by peak charging power as tested by Edmunds, the Lucid and the Porsche take the cake here, 270 kilowatt peak. That is very impressive. The Tesla Model 3 caps out at 251 kilowatts, but it does not hold that for very long in its overall charging curve. Scrolling down a bit further, you'll see that the Hyundai Kia Genesis cars all have a peak of around 240 kilowatts. And then when you sort by average charging power, Porsche wins here at 223 kilowatts, but the Hyundai products are not far behind at 210 kilowatts. The Hyundai Kia Genesis cars have a very good charging curve. And now, just for ha-has, we've looked at the best, let's look at the worst. So the Chevy Bolt EUV, oh man, average time to add 100 miles, 34 minutes and 49 seconds. Ooh, that is rough. Average charging power of 46 kilowatts. That is depressing. Scrolling down a bit more, you'll see the Mustang Mach-E is in the lowest third place at 23 minutes, 22 seconds to add 100 miles and an average charging power of only 96 kilowatts. Scrolling down a bit more, you'll see the Rivian trucks, and the reason they're so slow is because they have such a big battery pack and they're so inefficient relative to an Ioniq 6 or an Ioniq 5 or a Kia EV6. So it's not surprising to also see the F-150 Lightning down here, the Volkswagen products, Polestar products. So anyway, guys, I wanted to share this information with you. I thought this was a cool video to make, just seeing how fast our cars actually charge. It's a really good feeling to know that you have a very quick charging EV. And considering the price of our cars versus the Porsche or the Mercedes-Benz EQS, the charging speed per dollar is really second to none. So Hyundai went out on a big limb doing 800-volt architecture for a cheaper car, and it's really starting to pay off with good press like this. So go ahead, celebrate in the comment section with me. You might have noticed in the background here, I got a new little display with some of my products and a link to my website. Go ahead and check that out if you're in the market for some accessories for the Ioniq 5, Ioniq 6, or Genesis GV60. They're all on my website, ioniqguy.com. And as always, if you liked today's video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already done so, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care, everybody.